legal immigration system today dates from a world that didn't know what a website was, when the internet was a dream that a few people in CERN knew about and the rest of the world were maybe reading a few articles here and there. And it's not a surprise that 33 years later, our immigration system is not working for the modern 21st century world that we find ourselves in today. There are, according to recent estimates, there are 7.6 million people waiting in green card backlogs. Of those, 4.7 million are waiting because they have hit the cap that so many Indians in this room have talked about as well. And the additional 2.9 are waiting because they are in processing delays, which many people have also experienced. It's estimated that there are over 1.1 million Indians in the employment-based backlog alone, and according to analysis from the Cato Institute, 400,000 people will pass away of old age before a visa becomes available in the EB2 or EB3 categories, which is just a sign of how much this 33-year-old and coming up on 34-year-old system is impacting people's lives. But beyond just, and of course, clearing those backlogs would not only be incredibly beneficial to everyone in this room and everyone in their family and who are impacted by these delays, but they would also benefit the United States. It's estimated that just clearing the employment-based backlog alone would unlock over $250 billion worth of economic growth for the United States, allowing people to come here, take jobs which they are qualified for, come support their families, and pay into and support the United States. But beyond the laws, we've heard a lot about laws here. I also want to talk about really quickly the ways in which the federal government itself can act beyond the laws. Because there's a lot of executive actions that have been taken over the last few years that have helped people. But crucially, they are not solutions for the problem at heart. They are, in essence, Band-Aids. That comes including some really great programs like STEM OPT. STEM OPT has allowed hundreds of thousands of people to stay here for 2 years, to wait and try and hope to get an H-1B visa or find some other way to stay here. But that shouldn't be how the system works. I've talked to many people, and I'm sure everyone knows somebody here who has come here on a student visa, who has gone through the lottery and lost and had to make a decision. What happens if I don't win next year? I was just last week talking to a man from China who said, I was thinking of going to Canada. This is a man who has a PhD in economics from College Park, Maryland, who is saying, I might have to go to Canada. Now, he thankfully, on his second try, did in fact get an H-1B, so he will be staying here. But that is not how the system should work. And STEM OPT, as we know, was vulnerable to lawsuits. There was a real possibility that the entire program would get struck down. While that thankfully does not seem to be happening now, it sort of emphasizes the need for more than just regulations. But there is a lot that the federal government can do, including things like the International Entrepreneur Parole Program, which allows people to come here and start businesses in the United States. That is a program that we actually, my organization actually filed a lawsuit to stop the Trump administration from ending. Beyond that, there are things like the stateside renewal pilot program that you just heard the State Department talking about that may, for the first time in 20 years, allow people to have their H-1Bs renewed without having to go back to India or deal with Dropbox appointments or all of the stress and the headache that people have to go through for what is a simple process of just going and getting your visa renewed. You shouldn't have to fly home for that. You shouldn't have to deal with Dropboxes, and the stateside visa renewal program is part of that. The big thing, however, I want to emphasize beyond just these new different programs is also resources. When you are talking to members, when you are talking about these issues, it's not just changes in laws, it's also providing the system the resources it needs to work. Today, again, 2.3 million people waiting in, 2.9 million people waiting in processing-based backlogs and delays. It is taking the Department of Labor over a year to issue a prevailing wage determination, which is a key part of the employment-based visa process. It is taking U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service months for employment authorization document renewals, months for I-140s, months for every part of the immigration process because USCIS is fee-funded. Congress does not fund the agency. You all fund it when you apply for benefits. And that's a problem in a world like today where these backlogs have gotten so long. And starting April 1st, the fees are actually going to go up. And they're going to target employers in particular because they need to pay for processing all these applications that are in the backlog. Now, this is something you can do. We have strongly encouraged people to talk to members of Congress, not just about statutory changes, but just about backlog reduction funding. for US Citizenship and Immigration Services. That alone would cut these processing backlogs. So I really want to end with just this notion that it is both statutory changes that are going to be necessary. In order to get rid of the green card caps, you do need Congress. There is just nothing that the president can do about it. It's what's written down in the law. But the president can do things like these international entrepreneur referral programs. They can do STEM OPT, and whoever's in charge in 2025, whoever wins the election, it is incumbent on us to keep urging them to take these positive regulatory actions. And it's incumbent on us both to go to Congress and ask them to fix the underlying problems, but beyond that, to make the system work by giving it the resources it needs so that it's not, the prices aren't going up and up, it's not getting more and more expensive, and people can file their application and expect to get an answer back in less than a year. I think if we address this, we can both solve the underlying issues and we can make sure we have a system that functions properly. Because as we all know, to unlock the talent that so many people in this room have, to keep people away from being stuck in the problem of documented dreamers and having to leave this country when they turn 21, we can change that system. And if we give the system the money it needs, we don't have to do it off the backs of every person in this room who wants to file an application or a petition. Because at the end of the day, as the workload gets larger, the prices are going up. And we can fix that, so it's both resources and legal changes. And I'll leave it there because I know that you all have a lot to speak on this, but thank you all very much for the invitation.